Hey friends, welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of Sassy AF TV, How to Improve Your Confidence Using Body Language and Posture. Do you pay attention to your body language and posture? Do you notice these things in other people? Chances are you subconsciously perceive others just through their body language. I'm so excited to introduce you to this week's guest, Vanessa Raymond. Vanessa is a multi-passionate, in-demand woman and the owner of Achieve Academy and Victory Factor. She has an extensive background in fitness and is passionate about helping people live their best lives through believing in being their best selves. Vanessa started her life as a performer, and when she changed course to focus on family life, she discovered a passion and talent for helping women become more confident through intention and mindful body language and posture. Vanessa offers some great, subtle tips that you can easily implement to feel more confident now. As she says, know your intention and how you want to show up, because that's what people will see. Let's dive into this week's episode.
Welcome back to another episode of Sassy AF TV. I'm Hallie Avolio, and I'm so excited to have Vanessa Raymond with us here today. She is such a rock star, and she is talking to us about how posture and body language improve our self-confidence. How freaking cool is that? Amazing. Welcome, Vanessa. I'm so glad you're here.
Hallie, thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to be chatting with you and sharing with our audiences and everyone out there who's interested in learning about this.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Me too. So this is what I'm really curious about, Vanessa. You started off in as a professional performer, and you said you did work all over the world and on cruise ships. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that life sounds really fascinating.
Yes. It was super fun, super interesting. Of course, like everything, it has its pros and cons. But I've always been crazy passionate about performing. I started ballet when I was 3, and I danced my whole life long, took singing lessons, did a little acting here and there. But really, when I hit age 17, 18, I found my passion for musical theater. So I ended up going to college, and I was a musical theater major, and that was kind of my main thing for many, many years. I did very many types of performances. I did anything from musical theater through to corporate events, huge corporate gigs, as we call them, one-off engagements. And then I am also originally from South Africa. Some people may detect the accent a little bit.
I love it.
There's not so much of it left, but there's a little bit left. And so I performed in South Africa in theater for many years, at which point I really wanted to venture out. And so I applied for a position in a production cast on a cruise ship. And so I got to travel. And this brought me to the United States, which offered me the opportunity to perform all over. I've performed in China, I've performed in Europe, I've performed in the United States, and also I did quite my fair share of cruise ship contracts as a guest entertainer.
That's awesome. So what made you shift from this professional performing life where you're on the go? And I mean, it sounds very glamorous, although I'm sure there was a lot of work, and I'm sure it as it might sound to somebody that's not been in it, because I can imagine all the travel is very trying and wearing on you personally. But when did you make the transition to move more into the self-confidence and the fitness area that I know you do a lot of work in today?
Yeah, so fitness has actually been part of my life, all my life. As a dancer, fitness is kind of a part of that. You have to stay fit, and you have to keep exercising to stay in good condition, not to get injured. And my dad was a bodybuilder, so I grew up with the gym and with fitness in my life. So for me, as a dancer, my first certification was a Pilates certification. So that was a very natural progression from being a dancer. A lot of dancers transition into Pilates. And then I just naturally, ended up getting more and more certifications and kept going, kettlebells, personal training, all that stuff. And I got to a point in my performance career, as a dancer, your body can also only last so long. You do get to the point where you're like, okay, now I'm starting to really feel it. My body is tired. Not only that, also all the travel, as you mentioned, it's kind of a superficial, transient lifestyle, you do meet a lot of people. You never actually get to make real deep friendships because people always come and go. You're always coming and going. And I just came to a point in my life where I really wanted a family. I wanted more roots in the ground. And so I decided transitioning into becoming a national educator and being a fitness professional would be the next step for me. So I transitioned about around 2008.
Okay.
To that, I was already way into my 30s, and I was like, okay, I've done enough of this, and I really wanted a child. So that was kind of part of the motivation behind transitioning.
I love that. You know what I really love about that story, Vanessa, is that you talk about your love of dance from such a young age, starting ballet at 3 and going through high school and college and taking on musical theater and really finding your passion there and living that life, right? You didn't only just say, oh, I love musical theater, but you lived that life, you embraced it, you embodied it. And then when you were ready to transition into something different, you thought, okay, well, now I want to transition into this next phase of my life. And I think that's so beautiful that you have the self-awareness to be able to recognize what it is for you that is important in that time in your journey. Because, one of the issues that I hear from a lot of in-demand women is that we get stuck on this one path and we think we can only live that path. And sometimes we forget that we can think outside the box, yours truly, and really explore other opportunities. But I love that you embrace that part of you and that there's so many sides to who you are and so many passions and so many loves. You didn't just have to follow one path and stick with it until eternity.
Exactly. And it was a process. Quite often we identify who we are with what we do. And I feel like for a long time, I totally did. I kind of had a saying. I was like, dancing isn't what I do, it's who I am. I was so passionate about performing. And for me, it was not only the adrenaline of being on stage and hearing the applause, but it was about seeing people leave behind for a couple hours their problems every day and come and escape into a dream world of performance and watching and seeing smiles in the audience. That was really part of what drove my passion for what I was doing.
Right.
However, I think my transition was, I did go through a little bit of that. Okay, so who am I? What? So now I kind of got to a place where I was like, okay, so now I've lived my ultimate dream. Now what?
Right.
Okay, so a lot of people, I'm very fortunate. A lot of people don't get to live their passion and their dream to the extent that I did. But I did, and it was larger than life for me for a long time. And then I was like, okay, so now what? But I have always had a passion for fitness. I've always had a passion for beauty. I'm actually also a qualified esthetician, cosmetologist, and a part-time massage therapist.
You're a multi-passionate entrepreneur.
I am. I'm passionate about people. I love helping people. I love sharing with people how they can better their lives. I love helping them out of pain. Even as a fitness professional, I really am about helping people out of pain a lot more so than just sculpting their bodies. Mm-hmm. My Pilates and dance background is really about that, is about alignment and about finding, and that's actually where the posture and body language piece comes from directly as well. So that was part of the transition, was realizing that I have the ability to help people in a much greater way than I already was, seeing the smiles in the audience.
Right. That's fantastic. And I'd love to dive a little bit deeper on the posture and the body language. So there's a blog on one of your sites, and you've got several different websites, but one of your blog articles, you talk about body posture and body language and how that makes up 55% of our communication. Did I get that statistic right?
That is correct. And I mean, obviously that varies.
But sure, it fluctuates.
That's a ballpark. And it's been proven. Here's the thing. The reason I teach what I teach is not only for aesthetics. The thing is, if we can align our bodies posturally effectively, mm-hmm. we combat that whole energy draining effect that gravity has on us. So not only do we aesthetically look and feel better, but we also can eliminate aches and pains through aligning our bodies better with gravity. And we are able to move around more energetically and generate more energy within our bodies because we're not fighting gravity all day. So it's multifaceted. I always say it kind of sounds very superficial because I talk about posture and body language in terms of increasing your self-image and your self-confidence. But really, it's about the fact that we are more powerful than we think we are. And through acting differently and carrying our bodies differently, we can change our mental, emotional state. You can create those chemicals in your brain through the way you move to help lift your mental, emotional state as well. So it's a whole much deeper thing than just. But the communication part of it is how many times, and also in the day of age of technology where we text a lot and we email a lot, we know how easily our messages can be misinterpreted.
Yes.
And it is because the words that we speak is such a small part of what people perceive when we send them a message. Therefore, emojis also helpful. But
it's so true.
But the body language, how many times have you heard someone say, oh, it's not what you said, it's how you said it?
Absolutely.
So along with the body language, the facial expressions, there's also the vocal inflections and the way we speak our words. So it's really a big part of how we communicate. And the way we carry our bodies, and if our bodies aren't congruent with what is coming out of our mouths, people subconsciously have a weird feeling. They're not always necessarily even consciously aware of it.
Right.
And the flip side of it is, for the most part, it's natural for us to express ourselves in the way that we mean it. However, sometimes we cultivate some habits that we're not aware of that can be damaging to our image and how people perceive us. So what I try and do is I heighten the awareness of what it is that attracts people, and what the awareness of what it is you can use physically to help people feel more comfortable in your presence and to have them feel like you're an approachable person and that you're someone they want to be around.
That's great. Well, what this is triggering for me is my background is in outside sales. So when I actually studied communications in college, and my primary focus in communication studies was mass media, but we did a little bit in interpersonal communication as well. And I think that I've always been a pretty natural communicator, and I've been very in tune and had a fairly high social emotional intelligence. I mean, I don't have a metric to stand behind that, but I would just say from my life experience that that's true. And I remember in my first sales job, we did a lot of training. And one of the things that they talked about was, when you're on the phone, and this was way back before texting happens, right? But when you're on the phone, you have to smile. And so they often tell salespeople to put a mirror at their cubicle, right? Because if you can picture a row of cubicles in a corporate office and everybody's got like headsets on, it's like customer service or sales or whatnot. And if you have that mirror in front of yourself, so you're looking and you're smiling, your voice, right? It sounds so much more friendly and approachable versus if you're just like the, it's so dramatic. Not only the physical appearance, but how everything changes when you sit back, you put your shoulders back, you smile. So I'm sure are these some of the techniques that you teach women to improve their confidence?
Absolutely. I talk about the fact that because also in today's day and age, we do a lot of our business by phone, or now these days it's a lot more video chatting.
Right.
But even for phone calls, I am always sitting by my desk or in a upright position, dressed as if I'm going to go see someone, because people can feel that presence. They can hear it in your voice.
Yes.
They can subconsciously, and you sound different when you're sitting in your pajamas drinking a cup of coffee than you do when you are in that real mindset of connecting with someone intentionally about a specific subject matter. And then also I talk about intention is a huge word for me, because I talk about the intention. You need to have intention no matter what it is, where you're going, whether you're going on a first date, whether you're going to a network meeting, whether you're going into a job interview. Know what your intention is on how you want to show up. What is it you want people to see? Because what you feel inside is what they are going to perceive subconsciously. And therefore, not just knowing that I have to put on a smile and stand up straight, but there has to be intention and thought behind it as well to make it real.
I love that. And I think we've talked about this before. So I teach a spin class, and I start every class after we do the warm-ups and we're about 10 seconds before start time. I tell the class, I want you to set an intention for class today. I want you to think about how your body is feeling. I want you to check in with yourself and set an intention for how you want to feel when you walk out that door in 45 minutes. And then I'll bring them back to that intention throughout the class. And I'll say, as we're doing a hard climb or a really hard sprint, and they have to push hard and like dig deep and do the work, I say, think back to that intention. Because when you state the intention, even if you just say it to yourself silently, right? Even better if you can write it down and say it out loud. But even if you just say it to yourself, I believe it makes it come true.
Absolutely. It kind of reminds me of a conversation I've had with quite a few people. It's like the difference between being on a treadmill reading a book and being on a treadmill really being mindful about what you're doing. Or on a bicycle or on whatever the piece of equipment might be. I always say your workout is much more effective when you are mentally connected with what you're doing. For me, if you're going to, I know that a lot of people watch TV or read a book to make time pass, but you'll get a lot more effectivity out of your workout, and you'll probably need to spend less time doing what you're doing.
Right.
If you're mindful about what you're doing. It's so important to be connected to what your body is actually doing, because your body perceives that as more work, better work, more effective work.
Right. I'd love to come back to this. You said this a few minutes ago about sometimes we develop habits that we don't realize are off-putting. That wasn't quite your words, right? But and sometimes we don't know. So do you have any recommendations? How do we know? How do we know that what we're doing is not, in fact, communicating in the way that we intend?
Yes.
And how do we start to make the shifts? Because once something's a habit, especially if it's a subconscious habit, it's much harder to make the change, to make it a conscious decision going forward. So can you talk to us about that?
Exactly. So here again, awareness is key. Once you're aware of the fact that you might have some of these habits that are not serving you, you can start paying attention better to how you're communicating with other people and what you are doing while you're communicating. In my masterclass that I teach, I actually encourage everybody, we go through a list of things that might be off-putting, and then we have everyone write down what they think some of those habits might be that they have. It's little things like maybe when you're in a meeting, putting your hand in front of your mouth or cutting yourself off from people when you're communicating. Or maybe you're a fidgeter like me. That is what I have to constantly work on. I always say, don't give me the little paper that comes off the straw.
Right.
By the end of the conversation, I have little pieces of paper lying, and they all curled up and twirled up, because that's what I do. I tend to.
Right.
The thing with that is I'm not nervous. It's just a habit.
Right.
Because I'm fidgeting, but for the person on the other end of the conversation, they might perceive that as a nervous tension, or that you're uncomfortable,
right,
or that you're not comfortable sharing, or there's body language cues. Women tend to play with their
hair, right?
And
now mine's in my face.
Even though in a dating situation that could be flirtatious, in a business or a professional setting, that is also annoying. It can be just an annoying habit. People do not want to watch you play with your hair the whole time, or some people keep doing this over and over. And it's harmless, But subconsciously, it does give off a feeling of discomfort. And you want to try and eliminate those feelings of discomfort. Little body language thing, for instance, something that I love to share that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of us that do networking meetings or one-on-one coffee meetings, a lot of us entrepreneurs, we do that all the time. We tend to end up head to head across the table from the person that we are communicating with. Now, if you are sitting if you're sitting directly across from that other person straight on, that can be perceived a little bit on the confrontational side.
Oh.
Yeah, whereas
if you sit staggered?
So I either sit catty corner to the person, or you can just shift your shoulders to the side so that you're more heart to heart, or maybe even just rotate your body slightly.
Oh, that's a great tip.
Yeah, that takes away that feeling of confrontation and immediately draws them in on a more friendly kind of basis. So
I love that.
Yeah, so if you end up straight across from someone at the table, just shift to the side a little bit. So you heart to heart, shoulder to shoulder, as opposed to straight on. Now, if you are intending to set up a situation where you are wanting to convey that you are in control, or it might be a confrontational situation where you want to make sure you have the upper hand, being head on straight across from that person is a good place to be.
I like that. So what can you give us another one that's maybe something common that people don't realize, but is a really inviting way that we can behave, in person?
Yeah, so the other very common one is either the lean in. When we are sitting in a meeting and you're leaning back, maybe crossing your arms, it might mean that you're cold and you're just kind of getting comfortable, but this withdraws you from the other person. Whereas if you lean in slightly, of course, within reason, we always want to keep that personal space, but leaning forward and making eye contact really make that other person feel like you are really interested in what they have to say. And the other very common thing for us girls, because we like to cross our legs, is try never cross your legs away from the person, but towards the person. And again, it's a subconscious cue.
Right.
When you're crossing your legs away, your body tends to turn away and we tend to close off. And we get a closed line, which is not quite as friendly as when we're opening and we're crossing that leg. Now, when you're in a group situation, maybe you're talking to 2 to 3 people, just the upper body is really the most.
So who you're talking to, think about your shoulder.
Right. You want your heart directed to the people you're speaking to.
Right.
It just makes them feel more warm and fuzzy during the conversation.
I love that. Another trick that I was taught early in my sales career was that when you're having a meeting with somebody, especially as somebody that you're trying to develop a relationship with, you're hoping to bring them on as a client, whatever the case may be, that it's really important to model their behavior. So for example, if they're sitting back in their chair like this, and you do the same to model them, it makes them feel more comfortable versus if you are, really opposite, it creates that dissonance that could create this kind of tension or weirdness. Do you agree with that?
Yes. So it's called mirroring. And it's a technique where you can actually bring them out of that defensive posture where you can become really good at it by practicing it. It's very cool. You can, like you said, if you find them in this position and you want to move them more into the conversation, you mirror them. And then you very slowly transition into a more friendly posture and they should follow you.
Right.
If this is done correctly with enough practice, it really is natural for them to kind of, when you're mirroring them, and you take the lead, they'll actually follow you out of that body posture into. So yes, definitely. Body language is definitely a science and it can be very complicated, but my focus is really on that positive body language cues that are easy to implement in everyday life.
And the other piece too is I do think, like you said earlier, there is a lot of intuition. We have a lot of intuitive guidance to direct us. I think that sometimes where the disconnect comes in and that overthinking perfectionistic tendency is when we start thinking about how does the other person think that I should do this? And we go down this rabbit hole of wondering what everybody else is worrying about and thinking about. So, what I love to encourage women to do is really to, own who you are. And when you own who you are and you take care of yourself, mind, body, spirit, you're so much more likely to really be in tune with your inner guidance. And that inner guidance leads you to where you're supposed to be.
I totally agree with you, Hallie. My mom always said to me, I'll always remember this. She always said to me, always make sure you feel good about yourself before you walk out the door in the mornings, because then you don't ever have to look in the mirror again or worry about what other people see.
Oh, I love that.
And I've kept that with me my whole life, and still till today. I mean, I'm not the person that checks up on my appearance all day. If I feel good in the morning, and of course, there are going to be days that we have to leave the house and we might not feel 100%. But this is why I teach what I teach. It's so important to remember that we are so self-critical. Half the time, the things that we are so self-critical about, other people do not even notice.
Right.
Unless we bring their attention to it, they don't even know. How many times, anyone who's listening out there, I don't know about you, Hallie, but maybe someone gives you a compliment and they're like, Hallie, your hair looks so stunning today. And you're like, I'm actually having a really bad hair.
Like, oh God, I hate it.
So then they go, oh, what? Where? They didn't notice. They thought your hair looked beautiful. So we are very inclined to draw people's attention to our own insecurities and our own things that we are dealing with, instead of just accepting that compliment and reminding ourselves that, hey, maybe even though I feel that way, that's not the way they see me. And that's really kind of basis of what I teach, is that what we project is what people perceive.
Right.
And unless we really bring their attention to something that we might be really self-conscious about, they are not aware. So, don't give unsolicited information.
Right.
Without really needing to. It's not necessary. People aren't inherently critical. We are much more self-critical than others are of us. And quite often we project that on others.
Right.
And then we change their perception without it ever having to have been that way. Is that having have been that way? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the thing about compliments, and this is something that I've had to work on, because I used to almost always, if someone would pay me a compliment, I would come back with, oh no, it doesn't. Or, oh gosh, no, what are you talking, And so my initial response would be to counteract in a negative way. And so what I've been working on really over the last couple of years is to say, thank you.
Yes.
And just leave it at that. Someone says, my hair looks nice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's all you need to say. Because if someone's paying you a compliment, it's because they mean it, or it makes them feel good to do so. And when you thank them and accept it and appreciate it, then you're honoring the fact that they paid you the compliment, and you're training your own brain and your own self-awareness to accept and acknowledge those positive words. So it's a win-win. And when we downplay it and be self-deprecating.
Yeah, and that also makes the other person, it's kind of a slap in that person's face.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Take the time and had the compassion to share their positive thought with you, and you're just going, well, sorry, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
It's just true. Right? So, so it is. It's a very important thing. And that is when I come back to the posture and body language, I talk about all these things in my class. We talk about self-talk. We talk about how is it you communicate with yourself? Why is it you communicate with yourself that way? How can we change that? I give you techniques to work with every day to come back to who am I and what is it I want to represent? What is it I want people to see when they look at me, and how can I project that, even if I'm not always feeling that?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fine line there. A lot of people, a very big word these days is authenticity. It comes up all the time. what I say to my clients, and again, there's a lot of views on this, and I'm not saying it's neither here nor there. I believe authenticity is the way to go. We are all authentic beings. It is a lot harder to be unauthentic than it is to be authentic.
Right.
You have to work a lot harder at not
Right.
being who you are than it is to be who you are. So when you are striving to be, when you maybe have a role model or you want to emulate someone, it doesn't mean you're being fake. It just means that you are trying to bring out those qualities in yourself by acknowledging them in someone else. And that acknowledgement allows you more awareness on how to work on that quality within yourself. And that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Because people have said to me, I like to talk about having a role model or maybe emulating something that makes you feel like a better version of yourself. And I've had the comments, oh, but doesn't that mean I'm being fake? And I'm like, no, it does not mean you're being fake. Sometimes we have to create that feeling for ourselves before we can actually embody it.
Right. What a beautiful way to look at it. I really appreciate that context.
Yes. And sometimes we do have to act a little to be able to feel what that feels like. And once we know how that feels, then it's easier to embody it and to express it and be it.
And that, what comes to mind for me is affirmations. And it's a little bit of this fake it till you make it, because sometimes, you can use an affirmation when you're in a positive headspace and use an affirmation, it will resonate. It will feel great. You're like, yeah, I got this. I am on it. I'm on fire. But when I'm in a negative headspace and I have to pull out from my toolbox of mindfulness tools, affirmations, I might be saying something that I'm not really yet feeling in my heart, but the key part of that is the yet. And when you say it, you begin to feel it and embody it and embrace it, and you're training your brain and you're doing all the things for the mindfulness. So in that moment, it might not feel 100% authentic, but you know that it will as soon as you come back up to that place of positivity. So I think that's where the balance is versus saying, for example, I make this comparison all the time. Something that I've kind of struggled with is body image. And recently I had this revelation where I thought, I always have this image in my head that I'm this like 6 foot spring bean waif-like model. And I'm not. I'm tall, I'm 5'9", but I'm more athletic. I'm a bigger build, et cetera. So if I start looking at the mirror and looking at myself as a strong, athletic, fit person, there you go. So I don't need to pretend to be this waif model. That's not going to ever happen.
No. However, I like to, if we have time, I'd like to share a little story.
Yeah, please.
And I also share this story in my Victory Factor class because it was really a pivotal point for me in my life. I was working on a cruise ship at the time, and this will just kind of explain what you just explained in a little bit of a different way. And on the cruise ships, you make friends, and I had a very, very close, dear friend on the cruise ship with me, who I was working very closely with at the time. And I was doing a magic show at the time, actually. And I had to fit into these small spaces, illusions, to try and, but these illusions were actually built for someone quite a bit smaller than me. I'm 5'7".
Okay.
And these illusions were originally built for someone 5'3".
Okay.
So here I was at 5'7", trying to fit into these spaces that were created for a 5'3" assistant. And so that immediately kind of really, it takes its toll on your self-image and your body image. And you go, oh my gosh, I got to fit into these costumes. We have to alter all these costumes to fit me. What's wrong with me? Anyway, I was really young too at the time. And my friend knocked on my cabin door and walked in, and I was sitting in tears on the bed. And he said to me, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, I feel so fat, and I don't know if I can do this, and I don't feel good about my body and about myself. And I was just in that headspace. And of course, normally you would like a close friend to take you in their arms and say, don't worry, we love you just the way you are. You're beautiful. Don't ever think like this. Incidentally, he did not go that route. He said to me, well, Vanessa, if you want to be tall and skinny and all those things, you got to start acting that way. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? And I was like, well, whatever, let's go to bed. He left. I went to bed, had a little time to absorb what was said. If those of you who've ever been on cruise ships, you know that it's like being on a small island. I had been on this cruise ship for a couple of weeks, so I knew the staff fairly well. I'd been around. And so the next day was a sea day. We were in Alaska. And I decided, okay, I woke up the next morning. Okay, what was he talking about? Act it. I'm going to do this now. Okay. So I thought by myself, okay, how would a tall, skinny person feel? How would they walk? How would they what? And I got dressed and I decided I was going to take a walk through the cruise ship to the shops and whatever. And what actually happened was really crazy. Because in the 20 or 30 minutes that I was skipping through the cruise ship, trying to pretend I'm tall and skinny and how would I walk, 3 people asked me if I had lost weight.
Wow.
I was like, what? So here's my point. This was kind of one of the little seeds that were planted way before I created what I created with this posture and body language course. But what happened was, because I was acting differently, people's perception, and when we walk and we're schluffing around,
yes,
it's not nearly as attractive as when we are energetic and we're standing tall and we're walking lightly instead of dragging our feet. You appear different. And the results of that, so I got all this positive feedback, which immediately made me feel better and made me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me to want to act more like that and be more of that. And the result of that is your body responds to that physically. And your body shape, literally, if you can maintain that, of course, over a long period of time. It's my philosophy in the gym, how you move is how your body is going to develop. So if you move tall and elongated, your muscles and the fibers of your body, your being will develop in that manner. Whereas if you are working in the gym or walking around every day with an inadequate posture, not only does it cause pain, but your body develops that shape and takes on that shape. So it's really very multifaceted.
That's so cool. And there's such connection. I mean, we could talk about this for ages. There's such a connection between mind, body, and spirit. No doubt. It's, you can't deny it, right? And for anybody that thinks that, you don't have to start here to make the changes physically, I hate to break it to you, but you're wrong. But this has been fascinating, Vanessa. You have so much knowledge. I love this whole conversation, this whole content around body posture and confidence, and the simple tactical ways that you share this message. It's powerful because these are little things that literally everyone can do at any time and will see a huge impact, whether it's your professional life, your personal life, relationship life, even how you relate to your children, right? So there's so many ways to benefit from this. So why don't you share, before we wrap up, why don't you share where everybody can find you and how they can connect with you to learn more? Because I'm sure they want to hear more from you as well.
Absolutely. So you are welcome to connect with me through my website, which is victoryfactor.com. I am also happy if you would like to email me. You can email me at VEEDANCE, VEEDANCE @mac.com. I'd love to talk to you. I have a masterclass. I want to just put out there, Hallie, if it's okay with you, that I'm constantly looking for women who are interested in actually teaching these workshops. I have a wonderful compensation plan for women who want to spread the message and empower others. I also teach you how to present these messages in a presentation style if you want to do public speaking. So that is out there, or you can just take the workshops for your own benefit. And website, victoryfactor.com. You can email me. Sorry, I've got something floating around in front of my face. And please reach out to me. I do have a in-person class in Colorado, in Highlands Ranch, coming up on the 8th of February. However, I also, if you are anywhere else in the world, I do these workshops via Zoom online. If you are interested, please reach out.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all the contact for your email and your website on the show notes so that everybody can connect with you. But I just learned so much today, Vanessa, from you. And I just think that your presence and your demeanor and your positive posture and attitude and confidence is so pervasive and just comes across so beautifully. So I'm really excited to continue to learn more from you and to hear how others can connect with you and learn from you as well, because you just bring so much magic and energy. I love it. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really thrilled that you were on the show today, and I'm so appreciative for you.
I appreciate it, Hallie, and thank you so much for having me as a guest. I love you, and
love you.
I look forward to talking to you soon again.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all for being here. We can't wait to be back with you next week for another episode of Sassy AFTV. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
I learned so much from speaking with Vanessa. I especially loved the story she told about thinking herself taller and getting positive feedback from complete strangers when she carried that persona. The impact that we can make through our body language and mind-body connection is powerful, and I'm using Vanessa's tips daily to improve my own confidence. Thanks again for being here and tuning in for another episode of Sassy AFTV. It would mean the world to me if you would leave a comment and take a screenshot to share it with your tribe on Instagram or Facebook. Don't forget to tag me at Sassy Healthy Fit. Then make sure to head over to sassyhealthy.fit and sign up for our mailing list so you always know the latest and greatest in sassy fun. See you next time.